When my wife gets irritated at me about something, this feeling comes over me like the only reason she's irritated at me is because I am fundamentally flawed as a human. Like, I just shouldn't exist. I just fuck up everything. I fuck up everybody's lives. I just destroy everybody around me. Everybody's miserable around me. When I walk into a room, the only reason people don't immediately force me back out of the room is because they're tolerating me. I have this sense that I am tolerated, that my existence is only barely tolerable, and that as soon as I leave the room, people celebrate my exit. This is an internal belief that I developed about myself in my childhood. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Laurel, and I'm a former trans woman. I transitioned in the year 2017 and had gender confirmation surgery in 2019. I lived 6 years as a woman before having a sudden awakening to the realities of gender identity and what causes a person's gender identity to form. When I realized this, I questioned everything about myself, and I changed my whole life to return to living back as the man I was born as. And for the first time in my 43 years of life, I love myself as a man, and it's amazing. And I feel so happy and confident in life in a way that I never could, especially not when I was defying my own biology and trying to live life as a woman. So I welcome you to this channel. Thank you for watching. Hi all, welcome back to my channel for another video. This has been very fascinating for me to explore this whole thing, this detrans issue, and all these videos that I've made, and to see the incredible response, mostly from people who are very much aware of the issues and what it is causing in our societies and cultures to have this concept of gender identity so heavily prevalent in our cultures. It really is a social contagion. It's normal to experience things as you're growing up. It's normal to experience feelings of inadequacy. So what we have is a world where social media and TV and movies and things is exposing young, impressionable minds with ideas and concepts. And it's not just about the trans issue. Not at all just about gender identity issues. It is about everything. Everything your kids are exposed to in the media, everything us adults are exposed to in social media. Most adults are still living life from the perspective of whatever parts were developed in their childhood that never matured. And so many adults are walking around thinking that they're making their own decisions and that they're an adult that has the right to make choices for themselves, but the reality is they're not really making choices for themselves. Very few of us are really genuinely, truly enough in self that we're making a choice for ourselves. Every choice we make is based on things floating around in our head that is based on our past experiences. And so when it comes to things like gender identity, when you have perspectives in your head of what it means to be one gender or another that are based on your past experiences, you will arrive as an adult having perspectives that are very warped from where they would be had you had a different upbringing, a different exposure. Too many people fail to realize the effects of their childhood on their current perspectives. The majority of people walking around in the world assume that they're an adult and their childhood has no effect on their current sense of reality and identity. But the fact is, every one of us was built in our childhoods. Our childhood was like the factory that built the machine that we are. And depending on how efficient that factory was, results in wildly different opinions and perspectives as an adult. And so this video I wanted to specifically talk about the mother wound. The mother. Now, you may not have grown up with a mother. Perhaps your mom died or left, or you were adopted or something. You still have a mother wound. And believe me, if this is your case, if you grew up without a mother, you have a very, very strong mother wound. If you grew up with a mother, depending on how she parented you, you have a serious mother wound. Your mother is the human being that actually produced you. Your mother is who actually created you. Your body was created genetically, biologically, everything from your mother. So you have a certain biological energetic connection to her that can never be severed. That is always there because you came from her, and then you came from her mother, and her mother from her mother. Women are the creators of the world, and us trans women tried to put ourselves in that position. No matter how much a trans person claims to be a woman, they will never achieve the same creative powers that a womb and ovaries allows a woman to have. That's something that is very special and unique to a woman. Now, your mother was a woman. She had ovaries and a womb. If you are existing as a human on this earth, you came out of some woman's womb. Not necessarily out of her vagina. You could have been born C-section. If you were born C-section, there is a whole other layer of traumas that you live with that you may not even be aware of. If you were born vaginally, like I was, my mother was in labor with me for something like 21 hours. If you study Dr. Stanislav Grof, I love Dr. Stan Grof. He has a lot of experience in working with people and their trauma, specifically around birth trauma and what happens to the human body as it's being squeezed through the birth canal and the traumas that gives us. Now, you might say because everybody is born and everybody receives a similar squeezing trauma through the birth canal that it's not actually trauma, it's just part of being a human. This is true, but it's our relationship with what happened to us that makes it a trauma or not. See, you could have experienced a very long labor where you were in the birth canal for an extended period of time, and then as you go forward in your life and your perspectives of that experience and what it caused to develop in you, that is what determines how much of a trauma it actually becomes or not. You can take 5 people and put them through the exact same experience. These 5 people can witness the same exact thing that is extremely traumatizing to 1 or 2 of them, but the other 3 might just see it as an event that happened. That's the way humans are. Our psyches are so delicate and so finely tuned by every experience we ever had. So as you were growing up as a child in your childhood home and your mom treated you in certain ways, it wasn't only the ways that she treated you at the time, but it was the ways that you perceived her treatment of you and how you related to her treatment of you at the time that made it mean something that caused it to be a trauma in your life. So, for example, again, 4 kids could grow up in the same childhood home, and the mother could treat all 4 kids the same way. They never do. No mother ever treats all 4 kids exactly the same. That's just, it's human nature. It's what happens. Different kids behave differently. It triggers different feelings in the mother. The mother's going to respond differently. It's not her fault. It's nobody's fault. You are a product of every experience you've ever had, and you respond in every given moment based on how you learned to respond in every past event. And so if you were a child growing up in a childhood home where your mother didn't attune to you or never touched you lovingly, like she would hug you now and then but didn't lovingly caress your face and things as she was talking to you, these are little attunement things that humans need. Humans need connection. Babies who are raised in an environment where they do not get a physical mother's connection, they fail to thrive. Human beings need other human beings' connection in order to thrive. Now, I'm one of those type of people that always insisted I was fine alone. I don't need anybody. I'm good on my own. But that was my own denial. Denying reality that I, as a human being, need human connection just like anybody else does. This is part of my exceptionalism. I grew up in an environment that caused me to develop a sense of exceptionalism, that I was different than other people. Like, for example, I could stand and watch 100 other kids jump off a diving board into a 12-foot deep swimming pool. You wouldn't catch me dead doing that. I thought there was something special about me, that I, out of all this group of kids, somehow couldn't handle jumping off that diving board the same way everyone else could. My entire life was riddled with situations like this, where I thought I was exceptional, where I would stand and watch 500 other people do the same thing, but then when it came time for me to do it, no, I can't do that. I was too scared. And as such, because that was a frequency in me that I would do that, it irritates me when I see, like, my stepdaughter do the same thing, be afraid that she can't do something that everyone else is doing. She's standing there watching all these other kids do the same thing, but she thinks she can't. And I'm not entirely sure what sequence of events programs that specific response, but I had it, she has it, a lot of people have it. A lot of people have this sense of exceptionalism. You think that there is something special about you. I see it in YouTube comments as well. Out of thousands of comments, one person will comment something that makes it clear that that person thinks, for whatever reason, that their opinion is superior to everyone else's, and that they have a right to make a comment the way they do when no one else even thought to. It's exceptionalism. Growing up Mormon in the Mormon church, that is one of the biggest ways to make a person develop a sense of exceptionalism. The church itself tells you that it is the only true church on the face of the earth, and that as a member of the church, you are the only one you are one of only few people on the whole planet that has access to the actual authority of God, because you're a member of the only true church. It makes you exceptional. Exceptionalism will destroy your life. It'll make you think that you're better than other people, or that you're not as good as other people. That's when it really causes a real hindrance in your life, is when you use it to think that you're not as good as other people, that person can get up on that stage and share their message with confidence, but that's not me. I can't do that. Yes, you can. The only reason you can't is your own beliefs, your own past programming, your upbringing that caused you to develop a personality that thinks you can't do something. And so, back to mothers, it is my belief that most trans people have a very particular mother wound. As in, almost every trans person that I have heard from, when they talk about their mother, they mention things that are a very clear indicator that in their upbringing, their mother did or said things, or wasn't there for them in certain ways, or just the way she parented them ends up resulting in the kind of psyche that develops transness. Those who have a primary caregiver who treats them in certain ways as they're growing up in their very early formative years. We as humans adapt. We're very good at adapting, at analyzing our environment, seeing what needs to happen in order to ensure our safety. And when it relates to our mother, our primary caregiver, if she's not there attuning to us in the ways that we actually genuinely need as a young human being that is forming their sense of identity in this world, you will have no other option but to adapt to what is happening to you, to adapt to the situation, to look at the situation and say, oh, my mother is treating me this way, she's withdrawing her love from me when I misbehave. I need to learn to align my life with whatever I need to not lose her love. And in the case of someone like myself, who thought it was right to live as a woman and have surgery to cause my body to align with my living as a woman, it is very clearly caused by my upbringing. There is no question about that in my mind. There is no question whatsoever. And I have thousands and thousands of other people that agree, because history, experience, science, it all agrees that if your mind differs from your body, that is a divergence from the norm. And you can say that all kinds of divergences from the norm exist in the world. Yes, they do. But this one happens to be one that affects people. It affects more than just the person living it out. See, if living as a trans person, if living as a sex or gender opposite than what you were born as only affected you, and you were on a secluded island somewhere just living out your dreams of being a woman or whatever, that's one thing. But the reality is we live in a world where, just like I was talking about in this video, how important your primary caregivers are in your life, how important your relationship with your mother is, if you as a parent are transitioning and you have kids, your kids are watching this, your kids are being affected by this, your kids are having to adapt to what does this mean. As your kids go out into the world and they observe and perceive things, they're observing and perceiving those things through the lenses of which have been placed on their eyes by their upbringing in your household where you're transitioning as a parent. You are creating your kids' identities. You are playing a huge role in creating your children's identities. Yes, they have a lot of stuff they're exposed to out in the world. Yes, social media bombards them with a lot of stuff that is going to program them and make them and give them all these weird ideas that you then as their parent have to combat. But guess what? The lenses through which your kids look at those other things on social media, as your kids are scrolling through social media, they are going to perceive it based on what they're primed to receive it as. And that is your responsibility as their parent, as their mother, to attune to them, to love them unconditionally. When they express themselves, you don't withdraw your love from them and get angry at them. Anger serves very little purpose in the world. Anger does have a purpose, and there are those who teach anger classes, teach you how to experience your just, rightful anger, right? Anger does have a place, but towards your kids, it does not have a place. It will damage your kids. For your kids to experience their primary caregiver in an angry tone towards them, it will make your kid think that there is something wrong with them and that they're responsible for your anger. This is what happened to me. I grew up in a household where my mother was very angry. She would explode at the drop of a hat, as they say. And it was like walking on eggshells around her all the time. And as a kid in this environment, knowing that anything could piss her off and anything could set her on a angry tangent about something, I learned to crush any expression that I determined would potentially cause her anger. In fact, I had to learn to calculate way in advance that a situation could arise, that a situation could cause her to develop some anger, that I would try my hardest to manage everything leading up to the moment. Like, for example, I knew that she would get pissed off if I didn't take the garbage out on time, so I learned to try to manage things like that, like make sure I took the garbage out as soon as I saw that it needed to be taken out, so that there was no chance of her coming into the kitchen and seeing that it wasn't taken out and getting mad at me, because I couldn't handle her getting mad at me, because it caused such a feeling and sensation that there was something fundamentally wrong with me as a human. And I still struggle with this today. When my wife gets irritated at me about something, this feeling comes over me, like the only reason she's irritated at me is because I am fundamentally flawed as a human. Like I just shouldn't exist. I just fuck up everything. I fuck up everybody's lives. I just destroy everybody around me. Everybody's miserable around me. When I walk into a room, the only reason people don't immediately force me back out of the room is because they're tolerating me. I have this sense that I am tolerated, that my existence is only barely tolerable, and that as soon as I leave the room, people celebrate my exit. This is an internal belief that I developed about myself in my childhood. And as such, I grew up into an adult that felt the need to hyper adapt and hyper stay out of everybody's way. to keep quiet. I grew up very quiet. My ability to speak now is only a fairly recent thing. I mean, I have videos where I talk. You can go back and look at my old videos on my YouTube channel, especially some of my first ones, where I was I've been meaning to make a response video to some of my first videos, like my weight loss surgery introduction video. It is so awkward, and I did not know how to speak, because I grew up in an environment where I felt like my safety was in keeping my mouth shut. Stay as quiet as possible. If you say too much, people will get mad at you, people will get angry at you, people will get upset at you. And when this is your primary caregiver, your mother is supposed to be the person that as a kid you learn is safe. She's a guiding force, if you will. Genuinely, the mothers who have kids that grow up with the fewest problems, the fewest traumas and things, are the mothers that are very loving, attuned, they're feminine in nature, they love their kids unconditionally. They don't allow themselves to get angry and withdraw their love from their children when their children misbehave. If a mother gets angry and withdraws her love from their children when they misbehave, that is because she experienced the same thing in her childhood. We carry these patterns on. Parenting skills that I lack now is because of my childhood. I did not learn how to be there for a kid, much like I did not experience my mother being there and attuned to me in the ways I needed. I didn't learn that skill, and so now I'm trying to be a father to a stepdaughter, and I find myself just genuinely can't be there for her in the ways that I identify that I know I should be. I know that I could be and should be, but because of my upbringing in my childhood home, it developed my identity and my sense of personality and personhood and everything, and to such a degree that I feel like I can't, like it's like being in sludge or something. Like I stand there perceiving somewhere where I should step up and I should be a parent right now. I should step up and do or say this thing or attune to her, be affectionate to her, let her know that she's loved by me, but I can't make myself, and it's the most frustrating thing. And this is what happens to us as humans. Our identities get formed in experience. They get formed in our childhood homes, and they say by 7 years old, your sense of self is basically developed. And everything that happened to you leading up to 7 years old, and even at 7 years old, you still have a very, very limited perspective of the world and yourself and what it means to be a human, and you're still very much learning and adapting to what's going on around you. But the problem is, by the time you're 7 years old, the parts of your brain that perceive things around you and make sense of the things around you have been set in place. And so from that point on, as you're perceiving things in the world, you're perceiving them based on the lenses that your previous 7 years put on your face, right? And so every experience you have is experienced through the lenses of your past. And so many people are just living their lives thinking that every experience is just new and unique, and here I am in a new experience. It may be a new experience, but your relationship to it is based on your past. Two people can experience the same thing, and one person will be traumatized by it, and the other person just sees it as an event. And this is because of the lenses that are on our faces, that are in front of our perception from our childhood, from our growing up. As is very much recognized, most trans people recognize that they started to feel some sense of gender dysphoria or gender confusion at around 4 years old. And that's what happened for me. About 4 years old, I started feeling like maybe I should be a girl, or that I was a girl trapped in a boy's body. I was drawn to girly things and I couldn't make sense of that. I grew up in a household where it was clear that boys do this, girls do that, and any expression, I'm pretty sure it scared my mom to death if I ever expressed any femininity. I think one of her biggest fears was that I would turn out to be gay, and then I topped that one. Not only was I a lesbian, gay, but living as a woman when I was born as a man. And I can only imagine how difficult that would be for a parent to watch their kid. Like my mother had a son watched me grow up as her son, always loved me as her son, and then to watch me claim that I'm a woman now and having surgery to remove any opportunity of me ever creating her grandkids. My mom always wanted grandkids. She was only able to have 2 kids herself, and she wanted to have more. And so she looked very much forward to her kids giving her grandkids so she could have babies around that she didn't get to have around. And I destroyed that. My sister hasn't been able to have kids either. She had to adopt. And so there are no genetically passed down kids in my family now. I'm not creating any, my sister's not creating any, so our family line basically just stopped. That is kind of sad. Growing up either with a mother who is not attuned, growing up without a mother, growing up with a mother that is really attuned but expresses things that cause you to question yourself as a human being as you're growing up, or puts weird ideas in your head. A mother that shares with you all of her private information as you're growing up, all of it becomes trauma. All of it affects how you relate to the world around you. This is the woman that you came out of. This is the woman that raises you in your very first formative years of life, that holds you, perhaps nurses you or bottle feeds you or whatever she does in your early years. You're spending countless hours with this woman, and her behaviors are going to affect you, and they're going to affect you in crazy ways. Some less than others. Like I said, 2 people raised by the same mother will come away from her with 2 entirely different perspectives, most likely similar traumas, but because 2 individuals are looking through their own specific lenses of their particular perspectives, they will perceive things different and have a different experience. And this is the way all humans are. And spending some time on YouTube, reading YouTube comments, can build a picture in your mind of what's going on in humanity and in people and in people's psychology. The comments they leave gives great insight into what people are dealing with out there in the world, and this systematic change that is happening, this weirdness that happens from people being exposed on a worldwide level to information that we were never exposed to before. Like back in the 80s, when I was a kid, everybody wasn't walking around with these social media. Oh wow, 12:22 when I picked that. Not everybody's walking around in the 80s with these things that are, and they scroll all day long now, judging themselves, comparing themselves to the things that are seen, and judging those things through the lenses through which they're looking from their past perspectives and experiences. They come upon a post where this guy is saying that men should be better fathers. If I have the perspective of my past, believing that I'm not a good father, I'm going to see that and I'm going to judge myself. And throughout the rest of the day, it's going to be dwelling in my mind, oh, I'm not a good father. That person just called me out. This happens all the time as you're scrolling social media, because we have these lenses that we're looking through and perspectives based on our past experiences. Everything we see is going to affect us in some way. Our body's nervous system is incredible. We have this body with a nervous system that senses everything. And as you're going through your day, every little thing you perceive, hear, smell, taste, touch, it all triggers a feeling in your nervous system. And this feeling, then you got to make sense of it in your mind. Your mind says, oh, that feeling means I'm unsafe, or that feeling means I'm a bad person. As you're scrolling social media and a post triggers you, it triggers a thought. You go down this thought feeling cascade, and the result is we have a bunch of people walking around that are not themselves. They are not who they think they are. They are not even a fraction of who they could be, because they're constantly bombarded with stuff that is programming them to be something different. And the reality is that they're perceiving and relating to who they are now based on their early formative years under their mother's care. And so if you had a mother that was not properly attuned to you, or did or said things that affected your sense of self and sense of identity. Then you grow into an adult and you carry those patterns and beliefs within you. And you think you're making your own decisions, you think you're making choices based on the best outcome, based on the best benefit for you and those around you, but you're really not. You're making those decisions based on your past experiences and how you relate to them now. When you get in self and you get better at praying, allowing yourself to become humble enough to put it outside of yourself. Now this goes into God. I have a very different belief about God and Jesus than the majority of the people who I feel comment on my videos. Which then goes again into the exceptionalism. If you have a belief that differs from the majority of other people, then maybe you should question whether that belief is legit or not. Perhaps, and this is just being a self-aware human. If you recognize that you have a belief that differs from the majority of other people, like trans people, for example. If you look around the world and you say, oh, well damn, I'm the only one in this whole Target store that is a man dressed as a woman, then perhaps you should question why that is. That maybe there's something more going on that you're not seeing, that it's not just about expressing yourself and living true to what you perceive your authentic self. You see, you perceive your authentic self to be something based upon what you developed in your childhood to perceive that to be. And now you're taking your childhood perspective, your childhood sense of self and identity, and you're putting it in the current time and perspective and relating it all. I just thought of the example, like I made an AI generated image one time of this person wearing like hundreds of glasses and lenses, and as those lenses stack on top of each other, you're looking through the lens of your childhood, but then you're looking through the lens of your teenage years and the lens of your 20s, the lens of your 30s. You're looking through all these lenses and perspectives based on everything that has ever happened from the time you were born, and your body keeps the score. As Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, one of the best books you could ever read to understand this stuff. If you want to understand what I'm talking about, please, for the love of God, read The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He talks about a lot of other people's traumas in a way that is triggering for some readers. So I warn you about that. If you're easily triggered by reading about other people's traumas, then be prepared for that. But that book really very well lays out what causes us to become who we think we are. It lays out how our childhood experiences, our traumas, and every experience we ever had builds on top of each other to put us as adults now having the perspectives we do. And this was a huge, huge factor in my detransitioning, was reading that book. Understanding that I am the product of every experience I've ever had. Now this took me months to come to. This is something my wife and I were talking about this morning. I kind of tend to, because I had one specific day back in October where it all unfolded for me, that was the day when just enough of the pieces came together that I realized the reality of what I was doing and that I needed to detransition and go back to living as a man. That was the day that happened, but there was a lot that led up to that, like me reading The Body Keeps the Score and numerous other books, doing meditation retreats, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Tara Brach, Ram Dass, Eckhart Tolle, all these people, these spiritual teachers that teach more the essence of who you actually are. The messages of Christ, when they're not convoluted by religion and religion's narratives and intentions, the messages of Christ are very good and positive. Christ was here on the earth to teach us the reality of who we actually are. That we are not these people that need a savior. You know, you might think that, why would Jesus tell you you don't need a savior? But that's exactly what he was here to do. We, as the confused human beings on this earth, took the whole Jesus story and turned it into that he was our savior that had to die on the cross in order for us to be resurrected and go to heaven and all this weird stuff. And that as when you're born with sin, born to an original sin. How ludicrous is the concept that you as a living organism could be pressed out of your mother's vagina and all of a sudden you're a sinful being. You're a sinful being, there has to be a savior to save you from your sins. You haven't even done anything yet. And so the whole concept of Jesus, the Christ message that is behind it, true Christianity is loving and kind and caring, has no judgment towards others. Christ himself had no judgment towards others. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. I try my best to stay in a Christ-centered way. As I've said in other videos, when I start to record a video, it's easy to start getting opinionated and say things that can be taken in a way. But the real Christ message is very loving, non-judgmental, accepting of all. And which is where I'm at. I accept that there are trans people out there and that I'm going to see them when I live in the world. And I love them and respect them for where they're at because I know why they're where they're at. Not exactly. I don't know their personal life experiences, but I know enough about what humans experience and childhood trauma and how it affects a person's sense of self and identity that I know that if I see a trans person walking down the street, I know they have trauma. I know they have childhood trauma. There is no doubt about that at all. It might not look the way they expect it to look. If I were to tell them they have childhood trauma, a lot of them tell me, no, I do not. My childhood was fine. I choose to live this way for myself. None of us actually choose to live the way we do for ourselves genuinely unless we somehow resolved all the childhood trauma and removed from our eyes all the lenses of the past and are genuinely, truly in the present moment. Almost no one is truly in the present moment. This I have learned because I have made it a practice. When I learned the importance of being present in the present moment, meaning you're not worried about the past and you're not worried about the future and you're not telling yourself stories based on the perspectives from the past or telling yourself stories about worries of the future. You are genuinely, legitimately right here, right now, in the present moment. None of that matters. And when you can be truly present, you won't be looking at the present through all these lenses. You'll be looking at the present for what the present actually is. Oh, look, I'm sitting here under a tree. It's a lovely warm day. It doesn't have to mean anything. When I bring the past in, it means something. Oh, last time I sat under a tree, I almost got struck by lightning. I better second guess this. And then I get myself all worried about it and stressed. Oh, I wonder if someone's waiting for me to do something. That's worried about the future. I'm not being present. And what I've learned in trying to practice radical presence, I call it radical presence, is it is nearly impossible. Because we all are humans, we all have brains, we all have thoughts from the past, perspectives from the past, lenses we're looking at everything from our past experiences, and in the present moment, it is very hard to truly be present. As long as you're not truly being present, you will be living according to the past or the future and not the right here, right now, and what is actually going on. If you wake up in the morning and you feel the need to put on a dress when you are a man, that is because your mind is calculating, when I walk out into the world, I want to present myself as who I feel I am. You're not present. You're worried about the future, worried about the past. We all do it. But there is great benefit in practicing becoming radically present. There is great benefit in that, and I wish for anybody watching this video that from this point on, every day, try your best to remain fully present. And you'll learn very quickly how difficult that really is, but you'll also begin to see the extreme benefits that come from it. You'll realize that you notice things you never noticed before. You realize you find appreciation in things you never noticed before. You'll pick up a rock and you'll be truly present. You're not thinking, what does this rock mean? What should I do with this rock? Where did this rock come from? That's not being present. Being present is just looking at, oh wow, look at the patterns on this rock. That's a cool rock. Presence allows you to not be stressed. If you try to make a story about whatever it is you're looking at, if you try to tell a story that, well, this rock reminds me of an egg. Last time I ate eggs, I got sick. Oh no, You're not being present. Again, you brought something from the past in. And we do this all the time. This is why meditation is such a good practice, to practice not doing that. Because as long as you're continuously bringing in the past or worrying about the future, you're stressing yourself out. You're worrying yourself. And you're doing so through all the lenses of your past, through all the lenses that you're looking at the future through. Your best bet is to just truly be present. There are a lot of spiritual teachers that teach this concept, and there's a reason, because they've learned, most spiritual teachers, most people like myself who teach these concepts of how to find yourself and how to cope with your feelings and emotions and things, we do so because we have the experience of going through horrid stuff ourselves. I myself, having lived as a trans woman, had the surgery, destroyed my body, took away my ability to ever father kids again. It's extremely tragic and sad, and it's something I'm living with because I allowed myself to make that decision based on the lenses that were over my face in 2019 when it came time, I thought, to have the surgery. I did so only because of my perspectives, only because of my past, only because everything I was exposed to at that time and my perspectives and the lenses that were over my eyes at the time caused me to make that decision. And a lot of that was because of my childhood. A lot of it was because of the way I was raised and the beliefs about myself I developed in my childhood home. I love you all. I wish all of you to practice from this point on being as present as you possibly can. And like I said, you'll learn that it's very difficult, but that there are great benefits in doing so. You will find yourself feeling far more peaceful and happy in life, and enjoying things way more. You will learn that when you are radically present, your childhood doesn't really matter. The shit that happened to you as a kid doesn't have to mean anything. You are a human being right here, right now. I'm lovable just the way I am. I don't need to prove myself. I don't need to work my job so hard to prove my worth and value. That's a big one that a lot of people struggle with. They grew up in a childhood home where they were made to believe that their works were what gave them value, their ability to perform tasks or perform a job good was what gave them worth and value. And so as an adult, you focus so much on doing those things that you feel give you value that you end up ignoring those around you. You ignore your family. You become selfish, self-centered, because you think that doing your job is what needs to happen. I used to do this thing where I would take my computer to a coffee shop and work there, and sometimes my wife would show up to say hi to me. She'd be in the area and she'd stop by the coffee shop knowing I was working there, and she'd come in to lovingly give me a kiss and give me a hug and say hi, right? Well, because I was self-centered at the time and was focused on my work and felt like it was the most important thing because it's what gives me value. If I don't get this job done today, I feel like I don't have any value. And so I was focused on my work, and when she would walk in, I would look up at her actually annoyed that she was there because she's interfering with my work time, which interferes with my sense of value, right? Sense of worth. And so I would legitimately get annoyed that she was there rather than all happy and excited. Oh, my wife's here to see me and give me a hug and kiss. And she could sense my annoyance with her being there. Obviously, she shows up expecting me to be happy to see her, but instead I'm so focused on my work, not because I had to get the work done, but because I had the perspective that I had to get the work done because it was what gave me worth and value. And I felt like I had no worth and value to give to her if I didn't get my job done. If I would have gone home that night not finishing my job, I go home with this feeling that I failed. I don't have value, I don't have worth. How can I give her my love if I don't feel like I have worth and value? And this is what happens from our childhood perspectives as we grow up in a household that makes us think that our worth and value is tied up only in what we can perform and what we can produce. And so this happened many times where my wife would show up at the coffee shop to say hi to me and give me a kiss, and I'd be like, what is she doing here? This is my work time, damn it. And that's so rude, that's so self-centered, so selfish, so mean to her. She is such a lovely, amazing person, and she's there to to give me a kiss and say hi, and I allowed myself to be annoyed because it wasn't because I was legitimately annoyed that she was there, but it was because I saw it as an interference of my work time, and I believed that my work time was what gave me worth and value, see? So this plays out in so many different people's lives in so many ways. And as a trans person, it was very similar, that I thought being a woman, living as a woman, was what gave me some sense of being, some sense of value, sense of purpose. And it all comes from my childhood, from my past, and then everything that happened to me from my childhood on that developed these perspectives and put these lenses over my eyes, that I was looking at everything through these lenses. Now, of course, there's still lenses on my eyes. I'm a human. But I have done enough work on myself, I have done enough therapy, EMDR, EFT, all these different therapy techniques. IFS was what actually finally allowed me to see the system that is in me, the system of what a human being is, and all the parts that get developed within us over the course of our lifetime. Internal family systems parts therapy work by Dr. Richard Schwartz was what finally allowed me to really see things in the way I needed to finally unravel this whole sense of identity, sense of self, to such an extent that I was able to detransition. And this took many, many months. It did not happen overnight. I think I was aware that I needed to detransition probably a few years ago, but then I was so heavily in it that it was too embarrassing. It was too embarrassing to say, oh wait, I think I made a mistake. I think I actually need to live as a man, because I think I was just confused thinking I needed to be a woman. I couldn't do that. It wasn't until October that enough of the picture came into clarity for me that I was finally able to actually do it. Like Call Me Sam, I saw a video that he made a year ago where he was still presenting as female but talking about detransitioning. I didn't actually watch the whole video, but it made me realize that it is a process of learning, and it was the same for me. I went through a long period of time where I was processing this before I was able to finally actually do it. Because when you realize I've been living as a woman in this town in Colorado Springs almost ever since I moved here. I moved here in 2015 and I transitioned in 2017. And so for many years I have been living here, going to businesses, making friends, and all this. So then when I came to the realization that I needed to detransition, I was like, I can't do that, that's too embarrassing. Luckily, everyone I know are loving, kind human beings who gave me nothing but love and support and said, wherever you are, however you present, we still love you. Welcome back. Just like that. And it was great. And I think that those of you who are currently living as trans, who are questioning or trying to decide whether you can go back or not, just know that people are loving and accepting. It's far more normal to be a man who presents as a man, or to be a woman who presents as a man. The majority of people are going to accept you. The only people that are going to cast you out and call you crazy and call you an enemy and everything are the LGBTQ community, who sees you as a threat. I'm seen as a threat. I guess I say things sometimes that imply that maybe trans people shouldn't be living the way they are, and people tell me I tell them they're wrong for living that way. I really try not to do that, because as I acknowledge in this video alone, I talk about how the perspectives we gain are so real, and we fully believe that that is the reality of our life. I cannot tell any trans person you should not be trans. That's where they're at. As long as they're in that perspective and feeling, it's gonna feel right to them, and as long as it feels right to them, living as a man is not gonna feel right to them. That's where it really becomes self-hatred inducing, is when an environment or a community tries to tell a person that they're wrong for being the way they are. We should never do that. We should always just love people. Love and kindness will win far more wars than hatred. Not that it's a war, but it can rapidly become a war. Trans people are fighting for their identities, their sense of self, and therefore they can become very loud and opinionated, and I had my share of that, my share of making videos where I was opinionated about what it meant to be trans. But again, I encourage you, those of you who think you have no childhood trauma, yet you're living your life with things coming up in your life that you don't like, and you feel like you can't accomplish certain things that you really want to accomplish, and you can't make sense of why, yet you tell me, I have no trauma. The exact fact that you're having difficulties in your life, or feeling struggles, or feeling setbacks, that is because you have trauma. You have things from your past that are causing you limiting beliefs about yourself, your sense of self, your sense of identity. The reason you lack confidence to do something is not because you just innately as a person don't have confidence. Something happened in your past. Your experiences taught you that you shouldn't have confidence. Your experiences taught you that if you do something, that if you get up and speak in front of people, you're going to make a fool out of yourself, and therefore you lose the confidence to ever do it again. That was something that happened in the past. It's not necessarily going to play out in the future unless you make it. So think about your childhood. Think about your mother. Think about what your relationship was with your mother. And think about what I have said in this video, and the fact that the body keeps the score. The body remembers, sensation-wise, and then those sensations get triggered in your current life, and those sensations trigger a thought, and next thing you know, you're back in the same pattern dynamic as your childhood. I love you all. Recognize that you are the product of your upbringing. You can't get away from that. That is just the reality. You can do self-healing work and therapy and things to try to resolve it, but the fact is your childhood is what made your sense of identity the way it is, and if your perspectives are the way they are, it's because of your past. I love you all. Please subscribe and watch out for more videos.